All right, AJ, welcome to the program.
Why, thank you, Stephen. I appreciate being here.
It's been a long time since we've seen you, so how did you get into theater?
Oh, wow. That's a really interesting story because I was actually going to college.
Yeah.
And they called the communications department.
Okay.
And I started off as a music major, but one day, one of our directors called us in and said, well, only 1 out of 99 of you are ever going to make a living at this. And I'm like,
whoa.
Check, please. I am changing my major. And so I went along with something I thought would be better. So I went to communications. And you can really make a living in communications.
Oh, yeah.
And some of my friends actually do make a great living in communications. Kevin Clay in Oklahoma and Kevin Charles, who actually works for KSBJ. And they make a wonderful living in radio. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to go into that area, but I was also taking some photography courses for communications. And somebody called the dean's office, and they said, we need somebody to take pictures for Man of La Mancha, which is a production in Turner Auditorium. And I'm like, okay, fine, I'll go do it.
Yeah. And
I went down there, and in Turner Auditorium, directing this production was one of my father's friends, and his name is Lawrence Zilmer. And everybody called him Dr. Z.
Okay.
And so I took pictures, and I reacquainted myself with Dr. Z, and didn't do anything else in the theater department for a couple of years. Had no other contact with these people. So I finished my 4-year degree in 4.5 years.
Right.
And then needed some way to actually spend some time. So I said, no, well, maybe I'm not ready to be a DJ yet. I can kill a year by being a school teacher. So I went back. I went back again. Went back to college and spent a year getting a teaching certificate.
Right. Got
my teaching certificate in speech and in history because those were my major and minor areas. And so what happened is I found a small school. One of my friends had found a job for me, but I had to teach theater. And I have all these hours in fine arts, and I'm like, I have no hours in theater. None. So if any of my students watch this, you're going to know right now. This is the true story.
He's been pretending all these years.
This is the true story. So they said, we'd love to hire you, but we need hours in theater.
Yeah.
And so what I did, I went down to the theater department where Dr. Lawrence Zilmer was. I said, Dr. Z, I need to know everything you know about theater in the summertime. In 3 months, I need to know what you know. He says, well, I'll tell you what we're doing. Summer Repertory Theater is performing in the Cherokee Theater in Rusk, Texas.
Right.
We're doing 5 shows in 7 weeks.
Whoa!
He said, you'll learn, and what we'll do is we'll start you off swinging a hammer.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that moment, I became a technical theater person.
Right.
And I knew which end of a claw hammer to swing on, so that was a plus. And so that summer I went in and we did 5 shows in 7 weeks. And it was really intense.
Wow.
And I loved it.
Wow.
It was absolutely fantastic. And hanging out with the people backstage was great. And I loved that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really how I got a start. And I got a job and taught for 9 months. And I taught theater for 9 months. And then swore, because the one drama class that I had, they were the worst children.
Really? Oh, no.
Oh, they were so horribly ill-behaved.
Why? What? They wanted to be there. They didn't? What's the deal?
Well, I think most drama students are a little outgoing, just a little bit.
Yeah.
And I wasn't quite used to what it would be like dealing with high school children yet.
Yes.
And so it was my first year, and here I am, I'm 24 years old on top of that.
Right.
And I'm going into a classroom, and I didn't know what I was doing. Mm-hmm. No first-year teachers know what they're doing.
Right.
And so here I am. I'm teaching speech all day long, and I come to this drama class and going, I hate these drama students. They make my life miserable. And so at the end of that year, we did 2 or 3 productions, and at the end of that year, I resigned my position, said I'll never teach theater again in my life.
Right.
And then what happened is I said, wow, what am I going to do with my summer? I know. I enjoyed doing theater so much, I'm going to go back and do summer theater again. And so what they did was I got down there and I said, I want to do tech for you guys again. Yeah. And they said, well, we have bad news and good news. What's the bad news? You can't be a tech person anymore. Really? Okay. what's the good news? Good news is we're making you tech director. So I went from having 12 hours in theater to basically starting master's work. I don't know how this all worked out, but now I'm the tech director. Everybody's taking orders from me now. And I did 4 more shows, and then along the way, a little bitty school in Liberty County, which is the one next to us, they were looking for a drama teacher for 1 year, and they called me up and they said, "Look, we know that there's a drama teacher somewhere at Stephen F. Austin. Can they come down for a year and teach for us?" And so what I did was I went down there for a year. I taught for them for the year, and we did a dinner theater. My first show was a dinner theater with a melodrama, and then we did the Shadowbox, which is a wonderful show. We did that for one-act play, and by some strange coincidence, we won district that year.
Wow.
And it was the very first time that school had won district.
Wow.
So, you see, in a time of about 18 months, I went from a person that knew nothing about theater to an award-winning director.
Hey, it's not too shabby.
Not too bad. And I always felt like, wow, I feel like I'm conning these people. And so I taught that year, one district, and because I didn't have anything to do that summer, I went back to Stephen F. Austin and did 4 more shows. And by the time it was all said and done, I had 48 hours in theater, had A's and everything, and I had the time of my life.
Wow. A lot of hard work, though.
Yes, it was. It was a lot of hard work. But, I owe so much to theater. Right. Because my entire life for the past almost 30 years is because of how wonderful theater's been to me. If I hadn't ever went up to Dr. Zilmerman and said, please teach me everything, I would never have been in a position where I could have met my wife. Right. And we wouldn't have the wonderful children that we have, and we wouldn't have the lifestyle we have. And I wouldn't have met all these people that I've met up here in the Crighton Theater.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's something. But you said you were almost a music major, right?
Yes.
So you must have done music in high school?
I did music in high school.
What did you play?
I actually played in the stage band. I played electric bass. Okay. And in the high school marching band, I played clarinet. Okay. And I was first chair clarinet, and we had an award-winning band, and we did quite well. And then when I went on to college, I decided, well, music major sounds pretty good. I love music. Right. And I've seen some wonderful acts and some wonderful performers. And, of course, somewhere in the back of my mind, like any child during the 70s or 60s or 80s, I would love to have been the lead singer of a rock and roll band. The only problem with that is I have stage fright so bad.
Oh, you got to be kidding. No way.
I'm shy. That's what everybody says. You're shy? Yes.
Yeah,
I'm actually really, really shy. I really am. I'm scared to death to be on stage.
You know what? This is not the first time I've heard this from a theater teacher.
I totally understand. And that's the way it was with me. I was scared to go on stage, and here I am. I'm directing shows. Right. And for the first 5 years I directed in high school, my plays won every year, and we'd advance to area, or we'd get to regionals, and my kids were like tearing it up. Along the way, they conned me into coaching debate. Oh, wow. And one of my students, Joel Barber, actually won state in debate. So on my wall in my classroom, I have a state trophy for debate. Yes. So I'm a state winning coach. Yes. I would love to have one for the theater, but I don't think it's ever going to happen. But I've tried so many times, and I've had such great luck with my kids. Right. My kids work so hard.
What is it you do that when you're teaching them? What kind of style do you communicate to them, or what works with your kids?
Well, I would like to say that love and understanding works with my kids. I'd like to say that, and my children know that they're loved. I mean, they know that I care for them. They know that I'm there for them. Yes. I can't tell you how many times that they've called me up and say, "Mr. Opry, I've locked my keys in my car. Right. I've got a flat tire. Can you come help me?" Right. Or whatever it is. I mean, they know I care. But what happens is I try to instill in them some theater discipline, and they just don't make children like they used to.
No, they don't.
In the old days, if you told a group of people we have rehearsal at this time and show up and be on time, right, they'd be there. Right. And they'd be there early. Right. And nowadays, it's hard to get them away from their phones because they're texting. And the past year I've had to stop them from backstage from texting, text messaging. It just makes me crazy.
Yeah. Well, it's almost an addiction.
Yes.
They feel like they need to be connected. And it is kind of a false connection. Don't get me wrong. technology can be a wonderful thing and can help out in many different ways. But yeah, they just seem like, oh, this is. I like the. Have you seen the commercial where it says, "I've got 1,200 some odd friends on Facebook.
Yes.
They're all by themselves." And my parents, they don't get it, and they're out there actually, interacting with other people and having a good time.
And you see, that's why I have a Facebook page, is so I can keep in touch with my theater family.
Yes.
And if you ever log on my Facebook page, it says this is for my family and my friends, so we can keep track of each other.
Right.
And that's how come.
Yeah. Interesting. So back to the students, are there certain techniques that works, I guess, when you try to communicate acting to them versus some things that, no, it's not really for them, or?
What really works? I really try method acting with my kids. Right. I really do. Back in the old days when I was young and had less experience, I would go to the trouble of actually scaring the kids. So you need to look scared. Like, how scared do I need to look? Like Pennywise, the clown from It, was there. Don't you want it? Don't you want it? Come down here. And I would come up with this voice, and I would scare the children, and I want to have them have a certain reaction. But I don't do that anymore. Nowadays, I try to explain it to them, and I don't act as much as I used to. Back in the old days, when I wanted a child to sing something, I would sing the part to them.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Or if I wanted them to sound like Igor in Dracula. And then it's like, you have to have this sound like, yes, master. Please, master. I want the nice, juicy cockroach. But I've kind of shied away from that. So, and on top of that, my own children that I have at our house, they've grown up with this. They think it's a normal house. I'm sure that with Carolyn as the mother in y'all's house, and she's a wonderful character actress, and that's what I do.
You love doing the characters.
I love doing small character scenes, and so my children have grown up with this, and we would amuse them by driving down the road and, Daddy, can you sound like Scooby-Doo, or can you sound like SpongeBob, or can you sound like this or that? And so they think this is normal, and so they've become kind of jaded to acting, and so I can do this nowadays. If I do it in a 7th grade classroom, the kids are like, oh, this is so cool, he can sound like this. But my own children that we have at home, they're like, that's just Dad. It's not a big deal.
So how did you get into community theater? I mean, obviously you did it at different places, but
there were auditions for Gilbert and Sullivan's The Mikado in Liberty.
Okay.
And so here I am in Liberty, and I had done a little bit of stuff and done some set designs for the Cherokee Theater in Rusk, and I got an award for doing this set design for MAME. And I auditioned at that time in Rusk, Texas.
Yeah, I know where it is. Been there, done that.
I love Cherokee Theater. It looks almost just like the Crighton inside. It's beautiful. So I auditioned for My Fair Lady there and didn't make the cut. And plus, I live 3 hours away. It would be ludicrous. Yeah. My limit is 2 hours away from.
Oh my goodness.
I'll drive 2 hours to do a show, but 3 hours.
One way?
Yeah, sure would.
Goodness. Oh goodness.
Oh, when we were doing Miss Saigon, I was in Galveston part of the time, and I would drive all the way in for rehearsals and for the shows, and then drive back again in Galveston.
Incredible.
And I just kept doing that. And I'll tell you what, Marty Craig is just such a wonderful director.
She's a good director, yes.
She really is. Anyway, so here I am. I actually auditioned for The Mikado and got a part in the chorus.
Okay.
And I'm like the little dog that you have in the cartoons, the one that goes up to the one Butch is like, hey, Butch, please. So I'm bouncing around the director going, come on, I got talent, come on, you gotta give me a big part, come on. I can sing, I can dance, I can take out the trash, I can do it all, come on, I'll scrape toilets, come on, put me on stage. Right. And so one night, the band director where I worked and I were sitting around eating a pizza and drinking beer, and they call me up and say, well, one of the lead characters has dropped his teeth down a septic tank. No place but East Texas. Would you have some? Oh, well, one of our leads has dropped his teeth down a septic tank. And we're sitting around and said, should I take this part? And my friend was already playing in the band.
Right.
He was playing in the pit band. He said, yeah, take it. So I said, sure, I'll do it. Yeah. And 8 weeks later, we opened. I had no idea I was going from chorus all the way up to one of the principal lead parts. And so I played Pooh Bah and the Mikado. And he has, the great thing about Pooh is he has all these wonderful personalities that he has. And so I had a chance to showcase the different voices I can do and the different characters that I can do. And it was really intense. I had the most fun.
Wow. Well, it's not about voices, because this almost sounds Robin Williams-esque. Yeah. How did you get into doing voices?
When I was in high school, and I'm not the tallest person.
Right.
I'm not the most handsome person. I'm not the greatest singer. I'm not any of those things. But I found out that I could make people laugh.
Right.
And Richard Pryor was very popular at the time. And he had several Grammy Award-winning albums for his comedy. And one day, this voice just came out of me, and it was Richard Pryor's impersonation of a character he did called Mudbone.
Right.
And so I did this voice, and it just kind of went. That was my very first voice, and eventually I started adding accents to it, and then more characterizations. And then in college, I watched a lot of cartoons.
Yeah. A lot of voices there.
Yes. Mel Blanc, who did the stuff for Looney Tunes, just so talented.
Oh, absolutely.
You know. And then if you watch some of the great actors like Mike Myers, when he does several things for Austin Powers, or if you watch Johnny Depp, Johnny Depp has so much depth, you know. And so there's a lot of people that really can change themselves and change their voices, and I kind of pattern myself after that.
Wow. Something. Are there certain actors that you really enjoy watching, or no favorite actors, actresses?
Oh, well,
anywhere.
Well,
any place,
course,
film, TV, theater.
Everybody likes James Bond. Well, I like James Bond. I think Sean Connery is totally the coolest guy in the world. You know, and he just sounds so confident. You know, and I think he's the perfect James Bond.
Yes.
And of course, Steve McQueen was like the ultimate guy as far as cool.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, The Great Escape.
The Great Escape. Ray Milland, back in black and white days.
Yes.
He was absolutely fantastic. You know, but if I had to pick the person I think is the best living actor at this time, I'd probably say Al Pacino.
Really?
Yeah. The first time I saw Sin of a Woman, I was so blown away. I'm going,
oh, awesome.
This deserves the Academy Award. This is fantastic. Hands down, this is great.
Just awesome.
Yeah.
Are there shows that you like to see when you go out? I mean, whether it's Tuts or, you know, other community theaters?
Would you believe it? When I go out to the theater, one of the first things I do is I start looking around technically. How good is the show done? It's hard for me to enjoy shows. I saw a really good production in the Alley Theater of Svengali about 15 years ago. That was wonderful. I saw a production of My Fair Lady with Rex Harrison's son.
Wow.
And it was so wonderful that I forgot that I was in the show. It's one of those things, it's hard for me to really enjoy because I'm going, oh, that light's out of focus.
Right.
Oh, I know how that's set. That's a scrim. And whenever I'm with people, they're like, shut up and let us watch the show. Oh, that's sit back and look at this and go, you know, you're better than them. I'm better than them. We should be on stage. We should have that part because we're better than them. You know, and so we're very critical like that. And sometimes we're like, well, no, you sing better than them, but the costume looks better on them, or they dance better than you do. Right. So that happens sometimes. But I mean, but every once a year, I will see a show and will forget where I am. And that is just a fantastic feeling.
Oh, it's awesome feeling. It's nothing like it. Having done theater for so much at high school, and you must have all different kind of responses. People come to you and tell you, you know, about your show. What is probably the most interesting comments or touching comments that you had that people tell you about the shows that you've, not either the shows that you've done or the ones that you've directed?
Well, it's really nice. It's really nice when people come up to you and say, you did a great job in this role. And I saw somebody in Houston and you were better than them. So when I did the Mikado, I actually had some people come up and they said, we just saw this in Houston. Right. But you were way better than the poobah they had. Have you ever thought about going and doing bigger shows or going and doing off-Broadway? Right. And because I have such a commitment as a teacher, I cannot leave. I have to stay and take care of my kids. Sure. You know, but I mean, I get that. And then every once in a while, I get a comment from a child that says, you know, I would have dropped out of school. If it wasn't for the theater program, I would have quit.
Right.
And I got one of those at Christmas time this year.
Wow.
I had a child that was having a really tough time in school, and she says, I'm going to quit. I am so fed up with being in school.
Right.
I just want to drop out. And I got a really nice note from her that says, thank you, Mr. Opry, for being there, because, you know, you saved me, and I'm going to stay in school.
I think some of those stories, you know, we hear those two are the most touching, because those are things that keep you going.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things, you know, yes, I enjoy doing it. Yes, you get frustrated with theater or any other aspects of any job, really, not just theater, that you do, until you get those stories, and then you realize it's all worth it. Just amazing. Yeah, I live for those stories. I live for them. What about your family? Do they into theater too? They like to be on stage? Not really. They've said that enough. That's
Okay, you ready for this? My parents met on the set of a show.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
So back in 1953, in Mesquite, Texas, they were doing a talent show.
Mm-hmm.
It was called Outburst.
Okay.
And my mother was a band student, and they were helping to paint the set.
Mm-hmm.
And my father came in, and he was helping to paint the set. And the two of them just kind of hit it off.
Mm-hmm.
And after they graduated, they got married.
Wow.
So they have an anniversary coming up.
Right.
And next year will be their 60th wedding anniversary.
Wow. Incredible. They're not still in Mesquite, though, right?
No, they actually live close to Stephen F. Austin State University in Nacogdoches.
Been there, yeah.
So they actually live in that area, and I spend a good bit of time up at Mom and Dad's farm.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, that's how they met.
Yeah.
Now, my three daughters, because Angelica is 14, and Elizabeth is 10, and Jessica is 6. Each one of those girls have appeared in my own productions.
Oh, really?
So I cast my own children sometimes whenever I need munchkins. I cast my own children and say, okay, you're going to be Tiny Tim. So my two youngest girls have both played Tiny Tim.
Right.
And then my oldest girls they've been Cratchit children, Belinda Cratchit or whatever. I always put them in when I need to fill in. We did the best Christmas pageant ever this winter, and both of my older girls sang with the Angel Choir.
Wow. What's your favorite show that you've ever directed?
My favorite one is Noises Off.
Noises Off?
Noises
Off. Oh my
Off
goodness, it is funny.
The most fun.
Yes.
You know, and one of my goals was to play Selsden. I've never had a chance to play Selsden.
Right.
I missed the auditions here a couple of years ago.
Right.
But it's so much fun backstage, and it's crazy, and then on stage it's crazy. But for a director, you just want to pull your hair out, because it's doors. It's
all about doors.
It's about doors and sardines.
Sardines.
That's what it's about. Life. False. That's the theater. One of those things. So, I mean, whenever you do it, you have to have 6 or 7 doors at least. Yeah. And then the timing on Noises Off is so hard.
Oh, yes, it is.
And to do a really...
And it's everything. The timing is everything.
It is. That's my favorite show to have directed that's just a straight play. And if you want to call Noises Off a straight play,
yeah,
it's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
it's a farce. And then my favorite musical to direct is probably Little Shop of Horrors.
Really?
Yes.
It's amazing. Now, when was the last time you did Little Shop?
I directed Little Shop in, I think it was 99.
Okay.
You know, but I had a string of musicals that I directed. The Sound of Music, and I directed Oklahoma, and I directed Grease. And these are all big shows, which take huge casts. Yes. And when we did The Sound of Music, we had 3 Captain Von Trapps.
3?
I'll tell you, yes. We had 3 Marias, and then we had 2 Von Trapp families.
Oh, my goodness.
And so what we do is we would alternate the casts.
Yeah.
And you always have to have understudies.
Of course.
So, like on a Thursday night, you'd have 1 Maria, and on a Friday night, you'd go to a different Maria, and on the last night, you'd have the 3rd Maria. And that way, if anybody ever got sick, you're always covered.
Oh, you're covered. Wow.
You know, the only problem is you have to deal with all of those Von Trapp children And it's very strenuous. I've had people say, I'm never working with kids again.
I've heard that comment, yes. And it's like animals, too. I can understand why. I mean,
Yes.
they do, unfortunately, they do bring a lot of people to the theater.
The dog in Wizard of Oz, I directed Wizard of Oz
Yes.
as a musical, and I tell you what, just putting up with Toto, the dog does whatever it wants to, whenever it wants to.
They do whatever they want to. Yes. I remember we just did a photo shoot with our dog. Yeah, we did that too because we needed some pictures. Spent all day to get the right photos. All day because the dog does whatever it wants to. Just like little kids sometimes. They do whatever they want to. And you got to work around them. And yes, they're cute, but oh, man, it's real bad to work with. So, you've been at the Crighton. How many years have you done stuff at the Crighton?
I think it goes back to South Pacific.
South Pacific, yes.
South Pacific, so I guess that was about 2001.
Right. I remember, I guess, the first time, because we're relatively newcomers to the area. I got here in about 2001, but I think the first one I remember seeing you in was My Fair Lady. Not because, you weren't in shows, it's just that's what we saw. That I remember. I think Carolyn was in that too.
Yes, she was.
Trying to bring some other folks. Well, yeah, most of the players that were in there. Scarlett was in there. I haven't seen it, or David, is it Trough? I haven't seen either of them in a while. Yeah.
Yeah, David was in it, and David was really fantastic. Now I'll give you my story for the night of My Fair Lady. So here I am. I've already heard Marilyn's story about what and it's true. By the way, folks, it's true. Every night when I would get out there on stage with Marilyn, I was scared to death. But I was not to be beaten by David Troth because there was a night when in the pit the sound, the power went out to Dave Englert's keyboard.
Oh, and now I remember. Yes,
and it was like, so all of a sudden it got real quiet, and it was during this wonderful scene when David Troth goes, "Why can't a woman be more like a man?" And he's waiting for the music, and it got quiet. There's no music, and he waits a moment, and then you hear this bonk, bonk, bonk on the keyboard, and David had by that time plugged it back in and was trying to figure out, is it working or not?
Right.
And finally, he started coming in, and then the rest of the band started coming in, and David Troth, bless his heart, had just kept right on going, and they picked it up. But I could tell you that he was a little shocked at that moment. But he didn't break character, and he kept, and that was like the best save of the entire time.
Wow.
So when I came out on stage with him for the next scene, which is where David, as Higgins, offers me money for my daughter. I go up to him and say, "Hey, Governor, you and me are men of the world, ain't we, Governor?" And at that moment, I looked in David's eyes, I looked at the floor, and going, "Is it raining?" And what it was is David was sweating so much it was falling on the ground like rain. And they had to send somebody out at intermission. What is this? Just dry it up. Just go ask. And we're like, David's on stage sweating.
Oh, dear.
But I tell you what, he was so wonderful in that role. And he just kept right on going. And by the time another 30 minutes went by, he was fine.
Right.
But I wouldn't have went back on the stage. I was like, oh my goodness, is the music going to screw up again?
You know it is. Having to work tech, right? The beauty of tech, anything can happen.
That's right, and quite often it does.
We always talk about, we wish we could have the perfect tech show. I've worked tech for a long, long time. I dream of the perfect tech show. Might get 99.9%, but it's
Well, I've learned a long time ago, when you can get it about 98%, and you start pushing for that 100%, then you screw something else up. It's kind of like you're painting a set, and it looks pretty good.
Right.
It looks really good. You stop.
Right.
And I try to teach that to my children. Yeah. It's like when you perform. I know that they always say you want to give 110%. Let me tell you something. You want to give as much as you can, and you push, but then when you get it pretty good, you don't change it the night of the show.
Nope.
Because it'll screw up somebody else's timing.
Yes.
Which does happen.
When you're on stage, what happens if the actor doesn't give you what you need? I'm sure that never happens to you, right? Never happens to you, right?
Oh, jeez. I have been hung out there a couple of times, and you have to think to yourself, it's one of those decisions. I have to save this scene.
Sure.
What can I do?
Yeah.
And what happens is, and they actually have me somewhere recorded, they have me going into different voices and covering several different parts, trying to cover up for an ugly scene. I try to come up with the very best ad lib that I can come up with, and I drop back 10 yards and I punt.
In character, of course. But
And I do not break character.
Right.
I mean, I was taught to have really good theater discipline. I will not break character.
Right.
But, it aggravates me with the young people. They come in, they don't show up on time, they talk backstage. And anybody that's ever dealt with me backstage when I'm acting, not when I'm directing. When I'm directing, it's different because my hands are off this. I've done everything I can. But when I'm backstage, they'll come up to me and they'll say, "Am I bugging you? Am I bothering you?" I said, "Yes, I'm about to go on. I'm getting ready to go on. I'm staying in character. Leave me alone."
Mm-hmm.
And I try to be nice to them.
Right.
And there's been several times when I work off excess energy backstage because, I'll go either backstage or I'll be in the alleyway waiting for the trains to pass by.
Yeah, how that happens.
The trains,
yeah.
And I'll be back there and I'll be walking back and forth and pacing and trying to keep my line straight because I want my job on stage to be as perfect as possible.
Sure.
And I don't want to make any mistakes.
Yeah.
And I worry about this so much.
Right.
So, but I try to be prepared in case somebody does throw me a curveball.
Right.
That I'm prepared for. There's times when props don't get out there when you need them.
Right.
Or, and you have to look at this, the prop's not out here. Now, if you have enough time to plan, you can come up with something else.
Right.
And that almost is like that scene in Noise is Off, where they're using all the different props, they left us this lovely plate of, and there's not a plate of sardines.
Right.
And they have to come up with something else.
Wow. Having done so much theater, you must get to a point where you have to do shows again.
Yes.
Do you find that that experience, obviously it's always different, but is always disappointment? Or do you try to make it better? Some people, like for instance, when they see shows, they refuse to see this show again because they're going to be disappointed and they're going to end up comparing it one against the other. What about you?
No. I actually don't mind directing a show that I've already directed before because it's going to be different.
Right.
I've directed Grease twice.
Right.
And Grease is really hard because you have to have so many elements.
Oh, yeah.
It has huge sets. It has 11 different sets.
Okay.
And you have to have a large theater to do it.
Yes.
And then you have to have the car.
Mm-hmm.
And when we decided to do Grease, we announced we were doing Grease. And they're like, "You'll never pull off Grease. It will never happen." And I started looking around. We need a car. And we found a 1971 Volkswagen Beetle.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually took the car, chopped the top off of it, made a convertible out of it, put a fake Ford front on the car, and then it had dry rotted tires. And so what we did was we would air the tires up long enough to roll it out on stage for the scenes. They had working brakes, but not an engine. And we'd push it out there, and they'd stop it. Now, people were just blown away that there was a real car on stage.
Right.
And so we started the run of the show, and on opening night, it would hold air for about half of the show. And at intermission, we'd have the band would play really, really loud so we'd air up the tires again. And then we'd run it out there for the rest of the show. And the car was so rusty because during the scenes they steal some hubcaps. The car was so rusty that when they threw the hubcaps in one night, the hubcaps fell all the way into the floor. It was a Flintstone car. So, I mean, and that's just one of those things of live theater.
It happens.
Yeah, it does. But it was a really enjoyable experience.
Right. That's always different. That's amazing. Back to when you travel. Do you see shows when you travel places, or
no?
Not just too busy, or again, this is back to I can't really see a show because I can't enjoy it, or
well, no. My family and I really don't travel and go see shows. I know we should vacation. I know. Here lately, a big thing for us is just go to Six Flags.
Right.
And they have some shows up there, and we'll watch a few shows up there. And my children and I enjoy those. And they're inside in the air conditioning, and it's a chance to get in and see somebody else.
Sure.
And I look around, I start looking at the lights, look at the sound system. But they're people are either young people that are learning to be professionals, or they brought in some professionals, and they do a good job. But I mean, if you're saying, do I travel into Dallas and see shows? No. Now sometimes I've been known to go in Houston to see shows. I've seen some wonderful productions with my daughters on A Christmas Carol, the one that they have down at the Alley Theater. I love the Alley Theater.
Right.
And their special effects down there are just fantastic.
Oh, incredible.
Oh, yes.
Of course, they have incredible backstage. I love the backstage tour that you do. oh my goodness, I want this place.
Yes.
I want this place. I want this funding. That'd be amazing. So, what haven't you done that you want to do?
Well,
directing, acting, yeah.
Before I die.
The bucket list there.
Before I die, I would like to have a large part in Jesus Christ Superstar.
Okay.
That's not very likely. I mean, the range of several of the actors is just so high in it. For Jesus and Judas, I'd love to play Jesus or Judas.
Right.
That would be nice. On the other end, and this sounds really strange, I would really like to appear as Seymour in Little Shop of Horrors.
Okay.
And that's got to be sometime. They can only do so much with makeup.
Right.
I'm getting to the age now, and I've been mistaken for Rick Moranis before. I'm getting to an age now where I can do certain parts. I mean, I'm never going to be Brad Pitt.
Right.
You
yeah,
know, it's
okay.
never going to happen. But you know, but I'm pretty comfortable doing the small character parts.
Sure.
But Seymour is probably about as big a lead as I would like to have, because I love doing things like Alfred P. Doolittle, because he's on stage, he's off stage.
Right.
And that's great. I mean, what kind of show can you do where you go out there and you get the laughs and you have this principal lead and you're only on stage for like 15 or 20 minutes, and then the curtain call happens, and everybody else in your back, they're going, and then you come out, and then everybody applauds, and it's just fantastic. Now, I love the moment when I come out for bows.
Right.
You know, it doesn't matter if I'm in the chorus or it doesn't matter if I'm a principal lead. You know, I love that moment because I'm like, it's over. We all lived through it.
We made it.
And somebody asked me years ago, they said, what's it like to be on stage? And I said, have you ever seen Wile E. Coyote, you know, in Roadrunner? That moment where Wile E. Coyote runs out on that little piece of rock,
right?
You know, and he runs back, and then the whole cliff falls. I said, that's theater. That is live theater for me, because you know you just want to get back while you're safe, and then something else will happen. You know, so I just always come in and try to do the best job I can.
Right.
You know, and I hope that the rock doesn't fall.
What's your favorite band?
Well, that's kind of hard. My favorite solo artist that's a man is Billy Joel.
Really? Oh, yes.
Seen him before.
Yes.
James Taylor does an awesome job in
Yes.
concert. Tori Amos is a woman singer, and I think she is one of the most talented women writer and singers that I've ever seen. You know, but I mean, if you had to say, is there a band that you would like to see? I've missed Boston several times.
Oh, man.
And unfortunately, their lead singer, Brad Delp, passed away. And so I missed that chance to see him. But I mean, I really enjoy a lot of music by the groups like Chicago and my children. What's really wonderful is I left today and my children were singing Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen.
Oh my goodness.
And they've been raised, they're like, why couldn't we have grown up in the 80s? Well, because we didn't have you until much later.
That's right.
But the music, they love the music from the 80s.
Which is great.
Yes,
you know?
it is.
That's
It's a
great.
lot of fun.
And hopefully, you know, it's nice that they can appreciate the music that you appreciate.
Yes, we can listen to the same
We can listen to the
thing.
same music. It's actually okay, as opposed to, what the heck is that? I remember when I was listening to Foreigner, and for some reason the radio was set pretty loud, and my mother went into the car. It was shut down. She starts the car and starts blaring. She goes, "What the heck is that?"
It's double vision, Mom.
It was. In fact, it
was double vision.
So,
You know.
so what the heck is that? No, it is nice when you can enjoy it. I think one of the best advice I ever got from a friend, you know, when we went to college, all my friends, we got married late in life. We had kids late in life. So at least they all grew up together. It wasn't unusual because all our kids were young and people, I mean, they were probably, their kids were already in high school and moving on. And I asked them what was the secret to having good kids, raising them. And best advice I ever got was stay close to them. That doesn't mean they're not going to rebel, but stay close to them. Find some common activities that you could do together. And that varies, you know, from place to place. Like I said, you know, I love my parents dearly, but we didn't do a lot of stuff together as we started to get to our teen years. Now, I say that, but that's not true. We did do some common activities. We started doing camping and things like that. But for, you know, but being close to your children, I think it's very important, especially going forward, because they always need that to come back to.
Well,
It's, you know.
And you mentioned why haven't you seen me as much in the theater?
Right.
It's because we have this 6-year-old,
Mm-hmm.
and we talked briefly about South Pacific.
Right.
And during the time of South Pacific, I was choir director for First Christian Church here in town, and was choir director for several years. And I would teach during the day in Katy.
Yes.
On Wednesdays, I would drive up here and be the choir director, and then leave choir and come over to South Pacific rehearsals.
Oh, goodness.
And so I had my oldest 2 with me, and at the time they were 5 and 1. And they would see me on stage in blocking rehearsals. Here I am holding one baby in my arms, and then I had the other child by the hand. And I would run my blocking because I played the professor.
Sure.
And here I am doing this and dragging these 2 children around. And Angelica actually has been on stage since she was old enough for me to put into one of those baby hampers, one of those baby carriers.
That's incredible.
When we were doing Oklahoma,
Right.
she was on stage, and the tech girls, the lighting girls, would actually watch my daughter while I'm directing the show or doing choreography for the show. Now, Oklahoma was the biggest challenge I've ever had, because the sets for Oklahoma, once again, are really big, and they have to be mobile.
Yes, they do.
A point. And so, while we're doing and plus you have the choreography for it.
Right.
Because you have these great fight scenes.
Yes.
And when you put 40 or 50 students on stage, put 40, 50 people on stage, and get them fighting each other, it has to be, you can't just say, go and beat each other up.
No.
You know, so you have that, and then somebody had to choreograph the show. And I actually choreographed the dance scenes. So years ago, back when I was a boy, long time ago, I actually had some dance.
Okay, so you did that too, right?
I had dance for 4 years, and so I actually choreographed Oklahoma. Even the ballet scenes, I choreographed those scenes. I'm very proud of that.
Right.
But if you ever looked at any of the programs that it does not have my name on the program as the director.
Why is that?
That's a great question. The reason it doesn't is because if it's a good show,
Right.
they're going to say it was because the actors and the singers were great.
Right.
And if it's a bad show, it's going to be your fault, and they'll find out who you were.
Yeah, that's usually the case.
So,
anyway, yeah. Take the blame. Yeah.
If I actually write original music for something, or if I write the play, or I adapt the play, then I put my name in the program.
Right.
But you don't ever see it in there as a director. I just don't put it down. I don't bother. It's not important.
Well, it's kind of interesting. People ask us why we don't put directors on the posters. And because it's not important. That's not what it's about. People don't come say, ooh, I had to see it because, AJ was directing it. Well, that maybe some people do that. But for the most part, the patrons here, they're just here to have a good time.
That's right.
And if they have a good time, you did your job, right?
And theater is supposed to be an enjoyable experience.
Yes.
Take you away from your problems.
Exactly.
And you go in and enjoy it. Like last night's production, when I saw what y'all did here with Cinderella, I had a wonderful time. And my children had a great time.
That's, we knew we'd done something. Like you said, you always look at a production, hopefully it gets to 80-90% of what your original vision was, right? But there was a girl in the second row, and she's watching the scene where the stepmother's dressing down Cinderella, and the poor thing was getting scared. She's like, Mommy! And the mother gives her the hug. It's okay. And then, of course, there's redemption, when the fairy godmother comes in and says, yes! And the thing is, because Leona, she's such a nice person. The first time she ever did that thing, she cried. It wasn't in her, I gotta be mean, because she loves Kathleen, Cinderella. In real life, she's like, I gotta be mean. Oh, it's just hard, but she didn't manage to find it in her. She's had a good time. She's done Cinderella, I guess, 3 times now, in different roles. Again, so some people really enjoy doing shows again and again, and some people say, nah, I can't do it. I want to do a different challenge. Yeah, everyone has a little different, experience for theater. What are the biggest challenges, I guess, from the acting directing point of view? Okay. No, don't worry about it.
The biggest challenges. My biggest challenge when I deal with people as an actor is just that my concept of what my discipline is.
Yes.
Is I come in, I sit down, I take care of business.
Right.
And I don't want to be jacked with. I don't want you off here talking to your friends. I don't want you looking down at your cell phone.
Right.
I want you to sit. I sit and wait patiently. I've spent thousands of hours in rehearsals waiting.
Oh.
Because that's my job. I'm ready to go.
Right.
And if you want to cut up, then you wait until rehearsal's over,
Right.
and then you cut loose and you cut
What
up
everyone
and
did,
you
right.
have a great time. And I want you to know, I've had some wonderful times after hours.
Right.
And I've talked to a lot of people about this. And I've talked to it about either my students or about people that I do shows with.
Right.
And being on stage is a rush.
Yes,
and I know
absolutely.
It's really great. And it's great when they tell you how wonderful you are.
Right.
You know, but the best of times is when you sit around with everybody and you just enjoy everybody's company.
Yes.
And I tell them, this is what it's all about, is we're friends. And
Yes.
you know, we're there for you.
Right. Yeah. I always talk about, the community family, that, you come together for a short time.
Yes.
And then you disperse. And hopefully those relationships last, after that. Sometimes they don't. Like I say, you're friends and you're really close for a while. And then, okay, you move on to the next show and maybe you never see them again for who knows how long. But hopefully those relationships last. You come back together and you can have a good time again. It's also interesting how sometimes these cast dynamics. Well, you probably have to deal with that, especially in high school. Let's talk about, how do you deal with cast dynamics?
Oh,
Because we're all working
jeez.
toward supposedly this one goal of putting on this great show so that people can enjoy it. But there are personalities. And, hey, it is a people business, right?
Sometimes you actually have to cast people. Not always the best person. That really breaks my heart. Sometimes I've not cast the best person because there's a problem within that dynamics.
Yeah.
Somebody doesn't like somebody else. Or do you run the risk of the two leads dating each other and then they fight and then they're mad at each other?
Yeah, and you really don't need that.
No, you don't need that. I can't tell you the number of people I've seen in community theater and in professional theater and in high school theater where they start off as friends, and then somebody starts dating, and then it changes. It changes what's going on stage now.
Unfortunately, but.
And then they get on stage, and their better half is off stage, and they're going, "Who are they talking to now?" And then there's this jealousy thing. Along the way, I have made some incredible friends.
Yes.
And I'm sure along the way I probably stepped on a few people's toes, and folks, if I stepped on your toes, I'm sorry.
He said he's sorry. He said it.
I've been trying for years to say I'm sorry to everybody that stepped on your toes. So, my friends that I have, of course, Caleb Ackerman is my musical better half.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a better way to explain it. Caleb is so much better at music than I am. And he is my accompanist at church.
Yes.
Of course, 2 other churches can say that too because he does 3 church services on Sunday. But Caleb is just brilliant as far as music goes. Yes. And then Marilyn Llewellyn is my theater half. So what happens is whenever I need to talk shop about theater, I run my ideas past Marilyn, and then she comes back and she says, "Well, who do you think I should try out for in this role?" And when Cinderella came up, I said, "I think you need to be the queen."
And we needed her as the queen, and she got to be with her stage husband.
That's right. And John was fantastic. They've waited for years to actually be a stage couple.
And they've been doing it for some time.
Yes, yes.
That's amazing. Yeah, cast dynamics. Theater is a theater business. It's a people business. There's no way around it. There's nothing you can do about it. And sometimes that's the great joy and the great frustrations. What are you going to do? Sometimes, and because you've worked in all these different types, and unfortunately, they do get differentiated sometimes. Community theater, well, it's just a bunch of amateurs, and then there's professional theater. Oh, it's got to be so much better. What's your take on that?
Well, you know what? Because I'm not quite where they would put me. I know a lot of people that I work with that do theater. We're professional theater people. We are paid.
You're paid.
We are paid to do theater. I've seen some shows that were community theater that were much better than the productions I've seen in Houston.
Yeah, I've seen that too, yes.
And I've seen some, even just single actors in some community theater productions. They were hands down fantastic. And I'll go up to them. I will search them out and say, I want you to know how good you are from my point of view. Of course, they're probably thinking, well, who are you?
Right.
But, oh, geez, well, I've done over 100 shows. I've done over 100 shows, so I must know something. And I've even went to some trouble when I saw Svengali in Houston at the Alley Theater. I was in Vera Paredes after the show. Their scenic designer came in, and I recognized him,
Right.
and I went up to him and I said, I want you to know that I'm a set designer.
Right.
I saw your show, and the sets for Svengali were absolutely the best sets I have ever seen.
And they do good work.
They do great work.
Sets, incredible sets.
Great work.
Right. Yeah, and I've been, because sometimes people, like, especially in Houston, but I guess it's all places where they go like, well, this is professional theater, and this is community theater. You know what? I've seen theater all around the world. And yes, professional theater in general should be at better quality. I mean, that's supposed to be their profession. But you're right, it isn't always the case. And you have to just appreciate the moment where you are, because sometimes you can see some incredible gems in community theater. People that don't go, they're missing out. It's a great value too. Yeah. Absolutely, you don't have to pay $150. They're going Broadway shows.
And I've seen several shows here at the Crighton. That are just absolutely wonderful shows. And I've been in different places, and I've seen shows where the lighting is fantastic and the sound is fantastic, or the set was a little lacking. And then I've seen some places where the set was just great, and it just wasn't lit exactly the way I would do it.
Right.
But, I think community theater is a worthwhile endeavor.
It's just amazing. Especially people realize they volunteer their time and their effort to make people laugh. Not always, the case, but just provide them with a little entertainment. It's a great outlet. And it's a great learning. As many years I've been doing it, there's always something more to learn.
Yes. And I want you to know, because this is, I'm heading towards almost 30 years now.
Right.
And I have done every job there is to do.
Wow.
And they're like, why should we listen to you? What do you know? I said, well, I've done everything from actually clean the toilets.
Yes. Yep.
All the way to take the trash out, all the way up to directing the show. Mm-hmm. And I put my money into the shows. I felt so strongly about them that I would actually, front the money for a show. Wow. So, I mean, if that's the case, you might learn something from me.
I think, like I said, and you can learn something from everyone.
Of course.
Absolutely. There's always something, and everyone's got a story. This is why we're doing this.
Yes.
And hopefully we all learn from those stories and appreciate them. Just amazing. Well, we definitely have to talk some more, some more stories for you, but I got to ask you the question of the day.
Okay.
If heaven exists, what do you want God to say when you get to the pearly gates?
It'd be nice if he said, well, you did a pretty good job. For a guy who didn't have a real job. My father's always said, son, have you ever thought about getting a real job?
It's all relative too, because I have a friend, his father was a logger, and he became an engineer. Of course, from a logger's perspective, unless you're a man, do logging, engineering, that's not man's work, So theater definitely is not man's work.
Well, my dad, for all practical purposes, my dad is a machinist and an engineer.
Right.
And I will say my dad's been very supportive of me doing theater, and he's come out and seen me in the shows, and it's been great to have that kind of support.
Absolutely.
And I've enjoyed having my mom. I can remember that when I did the Mikado, that my grandparents came to see me. Mm-hmm. And at that time, my grandfather was in his 70s.
Wow.
And it was nice having my family there
to
say, that you're doing a good job. And that was my very first operetta.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big thing.
That's tough, yeah.
Operettas are tough, So, I mean, I'm glad that they were there. I'm glad I have their support. However, if I get to heaven, I would like them to say, for a guy that is an okay singer, a guy that's an okay actor, that you've done a pretty good job. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've tried really hard. I tried really hard to do good things. Mm-hmm. I think that we're all given a certain amount of talent. And I tell my daughters, you all have talent. Mm-hmm. You need to do good things with it.
Yes.
And so I still go around doing good deeds for people. Mm-hmm. I try really hard. And I'm not the greatest mechanic. I'm not the greatest set designer. I'm not the greatest guitar player.
Yeah.
But I try to take whatever I have and I try to do good things with it.
Right. Well, excellent. Thanks for coming by, and we'll definitely see you again sometime too. Hey.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Have a good day.